So yeah, so let's get started. So this, workshop, this kind of idea came about because we were trying to figure out what would be an interesting topic. And as the animation industry has really changed the past 2 years, it's become a lot more globalized. There's been a lot more opportunities for international artists, especially with the pandemic, because we've all been stuck at home, And we wanted to bring in international artists who have been making career in animation, illustration, comics, and doing a lot of great work, and kind of hopefully shining a light of how an artist who is not necessarily based in the U.S. and L.A. or New York, how they can build a career as a freelance artist, and kind of the hurdles and lessons that you guys have learned and overcome as an international artist to work with these major studios. So let's get started. So let's start with Urujua. Can you please say your name? Sorry if I'm not pronouncing correctly. Your pronouns, your brief physical description for accessibility purposes, and just kind of, if you have a full-time job or what your current title is and your location.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Arajwa Apple, and I am a Ghanaian Canadian artist, visual development artist, designer, and I'm based in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah. Awesome. Steph, can you introduce yourself, your pronouns, brief physical description, and your title and your location?
Sure. So welcome, everyone. I'm Steph C. I'm a Mexican artist. I'm based in Guadalajara, Mexico. So yeah, down there, I have worked as a comic artist, penciler, inker, posters, prints, cover books. Most recently, I started working for Warner Bros. Animation under the Freelance title. So very excited for that.
Awesome.
I'm very happy to be here with you all.
Thank you. And last but not least, Luis.
Well, first, thanks for having me here. Hello to everyone. My name is Luis Garria. I go by the pronoun he. I'm a character designer. At the moment, I'm based in LA. I'm from Costa Rica and from Canada as well. And yeah, we will talk about my journey, but I've been all over the place.
Awesome. So, you guys have all located in different locations, have different experiences, and also have worked with different companies. But let's start, just from the beginning. Like, how did you get your start in animation, illustration, or comics? You guys all come from a very diverse background. So, and as we all know, there's no set path to getting into this industry. So give us a brief recap of what got you interested in this career and how did you first get your start. So can you pronounce it one more time? Rajwa?
Rajwa.
Rajwa. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to get us start with this question?
Sure. So like how I started?
Yes.
Okay. I always liked like cartoons and anime and animation. So I just I went to fine arts first. So I studied fine arts for 4 years, and then I got my BFA. And then I was like while I was in art school, I was like, oh, I want to study animation. But I just continued with fine arts. And then like at the end of my last year, I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna study animation. So after I graduated, I entered like a 3-year animation program, and then after I graduated that, I got like my first in studio job in Vancouver. So I moved from Toronto to Vancouver in 2017. And then I left Vancouver at beginning of 2020, before even the pandemic, like January 2020, I left Vancouver because I don't know, I just wanted to move back to Toronto. And then I was I had in mind oh, it'd be cool to start freelancing and stuff. And then somehow it just worked out. I don't know. Yeah. So I've been freelancing for animation. ever
Awesome.
since. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna dive in later on like how that first started. So I'm
Okay.
sure
Yeah.
we'll touch on those topics. But yeah, no, that's great to hear. So and to also clarify, so you went to college or study fine arts in Canada as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I got my BFA. So yeah, that was like 4 years. And then my major was drawing and painting. But then like, yeah, as I was going through art school, I was just like, I'm gonna study animation because I don't want to do fine art. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you. And before I kick it over to the next person, for people that are here, feel free to, if you have any Q&A questions as well, we're going to try to save at least 10 minutes to answer as many Q&A questions as we can. But feel free to, drop those in the Q&A tab. If you drop it in the chat, we might not see them, so we might miss them once we get to the Q&A section. So just a quick reminder. So Steph, same question. How'd you get your start in animation and illustration comics? Kind of give us a brief recap of your start in the industry.
Sure. So I've always been very interested by drawing. And I remember very vividly that nothing ever made me feel as empowered as just to sit and create and be able to like bring things to life. And so there's not really like an animation industry where I live. So I had to study film. I am a film major, and then I had an animation program. But animation was kind of like the basis for me to translate into illustration and comics. And I just wanted to create. And so I graduated from film school and I didn't have a job. So I started to freelance and do commissions. And pretty much like roughly after 2 years after I graduated, it's when DC contacted me and they were like, oh, we really like your work. Would you like to like illustrate this graphic novel for us? And I think that's like one of the best experiences I've ever had, to just have this background in film school and applying those things to comics and drawing and illustration. It's just amazing how I've been able to like combine both of those things. And that's pretty much how it started. I've always wanted to create, and so I did.
Yeah. And just to also clarify, when you started off freelancing with these, shorter assignments and projects, were they mainly companies based in Mexico, or were they based in the US or other countries?
No, they were actually private clients, because I had a lot of struggle trying to find like companies here, because here you don't really work as a character designer or illustrator. Most of my classmates and most of the people that work in the industry work as graphic designers. But I didn't want to be a graphic designer because it was too technical. So I had to find like my way into finding like private commissions through character design and working with other people that wanted illustrations like for their D&D characters or books or whatever. And I would rather do that than go to like the technicality of just working with 3 colors and Adobe Illustrator, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was great. It's great still. And yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're going to dive in a little bit more on the comic side later on, but let me kick it over to Luis. So Luis, same question. How'd you get your start in animation, illustration? You also happen to be from 2 countries as well, going back and forth between Canada and Costa Rica. So, what got you interested in this career?
So, I was born in Canada, but I grew up in Costa Rica. So when I was time to study, I didn't know what to study. Like I never put together that animation is a job, you kind of like see cartoons and all that, but you never think about that. And in Costa Rica, it's such a small country that we're only 5 million people. So it's actually very small. There was at the time back in 2007, 2008, there was no career in animation, or there was nothing about animation. It was just one university starting a program, and it was called 3D animation or digital animation, something like that. So it was all based in 3D. So I had a friend that he was like 1 year ahead of me, and he was taking the program. So he was showing me, oh, look, you can draw and you can then make that drawing into 3D, right? And that got me actually very excited because I was interested in drawing, all that. So I joined that university and I studied there for 3 years. But during the first year, I saw that I was more into the drawing side, not the technical CG and all that, which is very interesting and very cool. But I like the pencil and dirt in my fingers and all that. So I got a job in an animation studio back then, and they were doing just commercials, 2D animation for commercials. So a teacher of mine from school, he hired me into his studio. So then he started showing me a bit of 2D animation while I was studying 3D animation. So that got me thinking, well, I actually like the drawing side, not the CG side. So after 3 years of studying there, I didn't finish my career. I decided to apply to a 2D animation program in Canada. Because I'm Canadian, I could be both sides kind of thing. So I decided to join a program in Vancouver, Canada, and then I moved there. Again, I'm Canadian, Costa Rican, but I didn't speak any very well English, so I was very nervous. So I moved to Vancouver. I studied for 1 year 2D animation, and then that got me into the industry as a 2D animator. But then my path, and we can talk about that later, my path got me into character designer. I don't know how, but I'm there. And I've been doing it already for a few years, and being in Vancouver kind of opened me some doors to work in studios and then to do freelance for a bunch of countries, and that got me here. But we can talk about that later.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. So before we dive into more specifics on each of your careers, I did want to ask this question early on is, the industry has changed. I mean, obviously we're doing this event virtual, which is a really, really good example. I think 2-3 years ago, this would never have been possible because of, just kind of, you do the standard conference and festival stuff in person, but we've seen that the industry change. It's now easier to work in animation as an artist without having to move to the US or Los Angeles or New York or at a big company. But that being said, as an international based artist, have you seen opportunities change? Are there more opportunities, less, or is there still a lot of hustle on your end to find these opportunities and find these clients? So let's go the other way around. So Luis, if you want to start this question off.
Sure, like for sure since 2020, or I think for me at least at the beginning of 2020, it was the time that was changing. But since 2020, it has changed, I think, a lot for the best for artists, because I know a lot of artists from even Costa Rica that are moving to Vancouver to do to work on like big projects and all that. Before that, I feel it wasn't possible. In my case, Vancouver opened me a door to work on projects and know a lot of people from studios, and then that opened for a lot of freelance. And I think, again, in my case, the fact that I work in some studios, they knew me, they knew that I would deliver on time and do the whole work properly. They trust me, and they were very open for me to not be in the city. They were open for me to move around if I want, but they knew I was gonna deliver that day at that time. So that opened me a lot of doors. But since 2020, and actually that's why I'm here in Los Angeles through a freelance, it opened me the door to then create some stuff. That art became a show, and now we are working here for the show. But I know a lot of artists that now they see the good thing about the pandemic, we can say, which is the fact that you don't need to be in the studio, and the studios are willing to open. And for example, again, a case in Vancouver, Canada, it's a growing city for animation, but you have a limit of artists, right? They are all busy. They need to expand for sure. So studios have to open. And actually, for me, like, all of you guys are from different part of the world, right? So that makes a team even richer, right? Because you have different experiences, different cultures and taste of art and all that, and that makes a project even better, I feel.
Awesome, thank you, Luis. Steph, similar question. Have you seen a lot of changes in the industry, especially the work that you've been doing? Is there a lot more opportunities, less? Can you give us some insight?
Yes, I think that especially for me, because I graduated in 2018, and I started networking my freelance job on social media, actually. Twitter, Instagram were like the first platforms I started to kind of promote myself as a creator, as an artist, and they became the primal source of how people contact me, and I'm pretty sure how studios find me, because you have a lot of tools for especially in Twitter. You have like Portfolio Day or Visible Women or hashtags that gain certain tracking, or you even have like our directors or people from the industry. Sometimes they will ask like, hey, we're looking for like new illustrators, and maybe it's just so we can have like people in our repertoire from artists, and you can just like drop your portfolio and your links there, and people will like, you can connect to your peers and to people in the industry through social media. And that's how you network and how you start to build relationships with other artists and people that are interested in working with you. Even for me, even if it's not like a studio work, that's how I did like many of my commissions when I started working. And I think it's like very, especially hindsight 2020 and how the world has turned, I feel like people are more open to the idea of working from home and working remotely, because that's how we will be able to connect to more, to some more of our peers and people in the industry. And I think that's incredible, because it's a very powerful tool just to be able to promote yourself in platforms and kind of like put your work in display like a portfolio in the net.
Great, thank you. Same question, Rajwa. How have you seen the industry change, especially, I think you're in a similar boat as Steph. You guys have a really large following on Twitter and Instagram and really built a following, and I'm sure that's opened a lot of doors. So at least in the last couple of years, have you seen a change in the industry, increasing opportunities, or still a lot of work on your end?
Yeah, because like before, I feel like there wasn't like there were like some freelance opportunities, but like it wasn't that open and it wasn't that diverse either. Like, and it was like usually like I don't know, I feel like older like animation vet people, I don't know. And and then I think like beginning like of 2020, like that's when things started to open up a bit more. And then obviously like I think the pandemic like accelerated it. So it's like what was like I feel like if the pandemic didn't happen, it probably would have taken even longer for it to be more open and more diverse. But yeah, I think it helped a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. This next question is actually for you as well. So,
Oh, okay.
You've built an an impressive client portfolio. You've worked with studios such as Cartoon Network, Warner Brothers Animation, Pixar, and many more. And you also have a really large following on social media. Do you have any advice for those that are tuning into this talk for how to kind of build their online portfolio, their websites, their social media to get their work noticed, to open these opportunities for them? Is there any lessons that you learned that really kind of kick down that door?
Yeah, like Like I treat my social media like kind of like an extension of like my style. So I think what people gravitate towards is that I try to stay myself. Like even if I'm exploring something different or new, I'm like the essence is still me, right? So I'm not trying to chase something that I'm not, and I think that's what helps probably, or I think that's what people notice maybe. Yeah. And
Yeah.
oh yeah, and another thing, like I also like to have a separate portfolio site outside of my like Instagram and Twitter and stuff because like if you have your own like dedicated site, you can display how you want your art to be seen your own way, right? And then on top of that, let's say you want to break from social media, then you can just update your site. You don't have to like just like always be on Instagram or Twitter for you to show your work to clients, right? So I think that like I just like having a separate thing from Instagram and Twitter, and then like yeah, I think that helps.
Did you find yourself also to kind of help build that following? Were you know, I know Steph mentioned there's like portfolio day hashtags. There's a lot of different hashtags out there, especially on Twitter. I mean, that's how I find
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think
artists.
Twitter. Like yeah, like sometimes I participate in some of them. Like there's portfolio day, there's drawing while black, there's I don't know, like there's a lot. But yeah, it helps like even if you like want to show something you've done before, or it doesn't have to be new art all the time. I think participating is like I also found like a lot of artists that way too. So I think that helps a lot. Um, I think that's more of a Twitter thing though. For Instagram, I don't know. I think I just like kind of focus on my own like aesthetic and how like I want to draw stuff that I want to draw, and then I just put it out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you last little question? Did you find do you find that more people reach out to you via social media or through your website?
I feel like my my social media is like the introduction, and then if they want like let's say they want like credential stuff, that's where I put it on my portfolio. Yeah, my portfolio website, and then like uh yeah, like yeah, I feel like
So they work together. So you're using them in
it's like
tandem essentially.
together. Yeah, like together they work really well. And then
Awesome.
yeah, I would say so far all my freelance has been like I've been contacted through being found on social media, to be honest.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for answering this question, giving us some insight. I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wondering that as well, like how to get that started, especially with social media. So this next question is for Steph. Steph, you know, you also have seen a lot of success as an illustrator for books in print and comics. So how did you get your specific start in comics? You know, was it something about your style that, you know, you mentioned DC reached out to you? Was it just the style of artwork that you were putting online? And then also just, you know, based as an international artist, was there any hurdles you had to overcome to get, you know, that start as an illustrator for comics? You know, I know a lot of times comics are very open to working with people from other countries.
Yeah, I think that going back to like the training of social media, I'm pretty sure that the way they found me was through my Twitter, because it is kind of like an introductory card for who you are as an artist and for who you are as a person in the industry, right? So I also use my social media as kind of like my presentation card, and my portfolio is where you can see like the summary of my work and what I do. And so when I got contacted by DC Comics, when they wanted me to work on an edit, it's because I remember the email said like, "Oh, we really like your style because it's not something we commonly see in comics. Would you like to like work for this story?" And of course, the story was about Jessica Cruz and her struggles with being like an immigrant and Mexican, and the author Lilian. I mean, her story is amazing, the way she managed to capture like that struggle. So I feel that that also helped a lot for me to get into the comics scene in a more professional manner, because at the time I have just been working on illustration and doing like private commissions, but I've always wanted to make comics. And so when I got this opportunity, it was kind of like, this is the thing. And so it's when I decided to take like what I knew about film, which is all of the parts that make like a movie work, and translate that knowledge into my comic work. And I think that if we talk about like going into what makes you stand out, and when talks about like the thing that makes you stand out as an artist is yourself or your brand or who you are in comparison to your other artist peers, is that there will always be something that you do that no one will be able to recreate. And as long as you are as long as you keep that confidence in the work you do, it doesn't matter if it doesn't have like a big track, or it's not something that it's common or in vogue in the illustration sphere. As long as it's yours, I think that that's really what catches people's attention. And in many of the studio work I've done and cover work I've done, the majority of comments have been, it's just that we haven't seen the things you do in the industry. So we're very interested in working with you because we want that essence. And that's what brings us power as artists. And I think it's very important to understand that your artistic career develops in the sense that you have to be true to yourself. Because if you try to be someone else, then it's not gonna fall into place, because you're gonna feel you're not going to feel comfortable, and you're going to end up doing something you don't like, which is what happened to me. Like the first year I started, after I graduated film school, I was doing a lot of graphic design work, and I didn't like that. And when I started doing my own thing, that's when things kind of started to, I started to win track. I started to get like more recognized in Twitter and in social media, commission work, and I'm pretty sure that just staying true to the idea of what I wanted to make, which were comics and my kind of illustration, and putting my work out there, what has bring me all of this success and all of these like amazing projects I have been able to work on.
Thank you. No, I think you touched upon a lot of important topics in terms of like finding your, being really true to yourself as an artist. I know all three of you, I mean, when I look at your social media and I look at your previous work, like you have such a unique style that I know it's you, and not trying to emulate, trends that I might be seeing in illustration or animation, and kind of using that as an advantage to get, that recognition and found. I know since I'm a producer and find a lot of artists online, I always find it frustrating when I see the really great website, but like, okay, the artwork is good, and I look at their social media and it's like all their artwork is so much better. I'm like, oh, I want that on your website too. Like, so back to the previous point, we were saying like using both websites, like website and social media in tandem. It's very important to use that, so you just don't have two completely separate personalities as a professional artist. So Luis, this next question is for you. Again, you've actually now made the jump to the US.
Yes.
So, and many international artists I know are so focused on like, the only way I can make it in this industry, or, as a artist, is by moving to the US and working at these big studios. But as we see, that's not the case. But can you talk a little bit of how your experience as a freelance artist kind of prepared you for this jump, full time at a studio?
Sure. Yeah, I was living in Vancouver. I was working for like in-house studios, but I think around, I don't remember now, maybe around end of 2017 or beginning of 18, I was getting a lot of extra freelances. So I was working in a studio, but I was getting freelances from other studios, from DreamWorks and stuff. And they were like asking me to develop stuff. So I decided just to become a freelance, even though it's not at least for me, it wasn't like a easy decision because you're always in a studio, which is a very stable job. And then certainly you are, as a freelance, yeah, you can have a long project, but then there will be times where you are not so stable. So it was very hard for me to do that jump, but it was something that I wanted, especially because I wanted to control my time, and I wanted to work on or have time to myself, my own art. Like you guys are saying, like you need to be true of yourself. So for me, my social media is about me. Yeah, I can post stuff for work, but it's my art. It's my ups and downs, my ugly art and my beautiful art. But it's me. That's part of who I am, and we are not always on a high note. So I wanted to put more time into my art and all that, even though I normally draw a lot, my spare time and all that. So I became a freelance, and then a lot of projects started going in from Netflix, Illumination, DreamWorks. So it was happening, and most of them were from US. And then I think at the end of 19, I got an email for Warner Brothers. And it was a small freelance, but I think you were part of it. You were the coordinator, I think, or production manager. I don't remember your role in that. But it was interesting because the task was to develop some characters on my style. So it was interesting that someone was looking to my style specific to work on these characters. So it was an interesting task, and I did it. And then a year later, Warner said, "Okay, the show is happening. Would you come here?" And sure, I accept. It was a great experience. It was a great opportunity. So it started as a freelance. I didn't expect to be a full thing. You know, it's just a freelance. I was getting freelances to develop stuff. But what it's curious is everything is connected. Like Steph was saying, she was studying film, but then now she applies that into her comics, right? So for me, I studied 3D animation, but I never graduated from that. Then I moved to study 2D animation. But then in Vancouver, I was working with both sides. I was doing 2D art for 3D animation. So my background 3D helped me a lot to understand what the mothers were needing from an artist. So I think everything connects, and the fact that I was putting, like you girls said, more time into my art, my stuff. That's when someone sent me an email and says, "Well, we like your style, but we want to develop this with your style, right? At least to try to see how it goes, right?" So I think at the end, everything is connected. That's the beautiful thing of this. Everything is connected, even though you might say, "Oh, I didn't learn anything there," or "I want to learn more stuff." Yeah, we can always learn stuff, but at some point in your life, everything you'll apply even a little bit of what you have been learning. So in my case, yeah, I became freelance. I was a bit scary about it, but at the end, it was a good thing. Like now I'm here in Los Angeles, working on that show that I helped develop. Very exciting because I was hired as a freelance, and then now I'm working in the full production of the whole thing. So it's very interesting. So as a freelance, like they were saying, I don't even know how they contact me or how they found my website or social media, whatever. I don't know. I never asked, actually. I should. But I know, for example, when I was a 2D animator, I always take time to my art. My first job was a 2D animator, but on my spare time, I was doing character designs for fun. And at the time, I was posting it on Blogspot. So I was talking to a Blogspot to no one and just putting stuff. And sharing my feelings or whatever with character designs. And then my first movie for Angry Birds, they contact me through my blogspot. So they found a blogspot of a character design in Vancouver, and they contact me to my website. So I think like Uraju, yeah, Urajua,
Arajua.
Urajua,
Yeah.
like Urajua was saying, yes, it's your presentation, but the most important thing I think as a freelance, and it's combined with what you both said, is that's your presentation, but it's you. It's not the style of something that already exists. It's your style. That's your presentation. And yes, you can adapt to styles, of course, it's part of the job, right? But your presentation is you, right? Your experiences, your culture, your countries, I don't know, even the mood of your moment, right? For me, it's very important. Like the mood of today and the music that I listen, that affects my art this today, and tomorrow is going to be different and maybe terrible, but that's real. So that's your presentation. I think as a freelance, in my experience, was be true to my style, or I don't even consider I have a style, but because I love to experience or experiment with stuff. So it's be true to you, and exploring things. And then, yes, you can adapt to a show or a style, but you're putting yourself as an artist first. And then they see that, and then they will be open to freelance or even to experiment with something that already exists, but maybe your take. And maybe they don't choose what you did, but maybe they chose, I don't know, the way you drew the hand for that character. That's already something that you're putting for the project. And I think I'm talking too much, so sorry.
No, this is all great information. You know, we still have plenty of time. We have about 20 minutes. So I kind of want to ask more of a business side of the question, because, you know, you guys are artists, but you guys are your own business as well. So that's the hardest part about freelancing and being an independent artist is, you know, making sure you're having enough business to make ends meet, essentially. So, so as you guys get reached out to these opportunities, I'm sure with bigger studios, you know, you don't really have to worry about getting paid because they probably have their own process and stuff like that. But at least for more like private commissions and stuff, how have you treated kind of yourself as an artist? Like, do you have a specific rate? Do you negotiate? And then do you try to always get paid up front or afterwards? You know, because I'm sure that gets really tricky, especially being independent, being, you know, international, and not necessarily working with someone that you're gonna see in person, you know. Does anyone want to start with this question? It's kind of an interesting question on the business side of things.
Yes, I actually would like to add that I have a lot of practice with that, and I handle my private business as pretty much the same as I handle my work with big studios. The only difference is that when I work with private commissioners or people that are interested in getting a character or a cover or an illustration, I hand them a contract, and the studios hand me a contract. So it's very important. And when you work as a freelancer, you have a contract that clients sign to. And a lot of people feel like intimidated by the whole distribution of contracts and clauses and what they can do with their illustration, what you can do with it. But at the end of the day, it's just like a written statement that we both are making. It's pretty much just like putting it into paper. And so what is I'll ask what their budget is, because it's kind of easier to manage instead of giving like a flat rate, because I think that it also helps me to calculate how much time I'm going to invest in it, how much detail I'm going to put in it, and how much it's going to take me, right? So if the person has a low budget, I know that I can work something that they can be happy with, and then I can be happy with, and that it doesn't go over what they can pay. And it's going to vary depending on your clients. Some clients are willing to pay more, which is great. And some clients will be like, hey, I just have like this amount of money for my budget. What can we do with that? And so you have a discussion, and after you go through the discussion of email, then I will put all of that information in the contract and I will send them the contract. And some of the things I always make sure that I do is that I get a payment up first, like before I start sketching or before I start like sending them reviews or things for them to like make sure that I am working on their art. And once I get the initial payment, it's like, okay, let's go, let's work on this. And so you start the process. And by the end of, like when you finish the piece, what I'll do is that I'll send them like, I'll shoot them an email like, hey, like your illustration's ready. I'll just need like another 50% or any percent we discuss about. And then I'll send you like your final product. And it's, I think it's a great way to keep like in check your financial status and your business, the way you handle clients. And also it feels more professional overall. I think it's very important to keep that sense of profession or profession. I'm so sorry. To keep that sense of profession within private commissions, because at the end of the day, it's also your job, is your work, and so it needs certain respect, and you have to treat it with like the seriousness that it deserves. And so I guess that for me, it has helped me a lot to have those kind of parameters and how I sell my work and how people interact with my work. And it's pretty much falls into that, in like the understanding that we're just not talking about it through like the DMs or emails. We do have a written statement. And so that's how both parties make sure that what is happening is a convenient transaction for me and for them, for the client.
This is a great insight on how to treat your work. Because the worst thing to do is like, you know, deliver artwork and then not receive payment. So like being really safe and having those contracts and everything written out is really, really good insight. Roger, I think you also wanted to start off as well.
Like I mostly work with studios, so I'm handed a contract usually. But like what I do is like I keep track of like the pay date and the pay and my rate like on a spreadsheet, like just making sure like, okay, on this day I was paid, the payment went through, and then I just like mark it off, like just to keep track of making sure I'm getting my money. Yeah. And what else? Oh yeah, like if you follow like salty animators on Instagram, they have like a spreadsheet of like people's rate, like what people charge for stuff and how much they get paid. So yeah, you should check it out.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you know, obviously you know, the work that you're asking for is, you know, is on par with specific rates that some studios tend to pay. You know, you mentioned that spreadsheet. I know I think last year there was also like a really big Twitter thread as well about like what people are being paid in the industry, not just artists and productions, people being very vocal about that. But also at the Animation Guild, for those that just want that reference, the Animation Guild also has all those contracts with studios online and available as well. So you can also see what the rates are. And again, if you're starting out in the industry, you know, you're probably not going to be able to ask for that super high rate based on experience, because, you know, studios take that into account. But, you know, if you're working with smaller studios or even private clients, like Steph was saying, like working within the budget, because you kind of want to build that relationship with the client, because you never know if it might lead to more work down the line. So, you know, just treating, negotiating and being, you know, very vocal and communicative with studios and clients and everybody, I think is the best way to continue building that relationship with clients. Luis, did you want to also jump in and add anything?
Sure, yeah. I've never done what Steph says about a contract, but I do know a lot of artists that they also provide a contract. I think that's sorry, you might hear my dog. He's excited because he's going out. I know artists, they provide also a contract. I've never done that, but I think it's a good tool. Depends, I guess, also on your type of work. In my case, they gave me a contract. In my experience, normally, if it's a studio that I've known for a while, and then I know the producers and stuff, I'm very easy and chill with those things. I know even I might start already and then the contract is not done yet or whatever, but I know the relationship between them and myself, so I trust them, and I know and I'm not very, I don't know, if I trust them, I know there's going to be a good deal at the end and all that. If it's personal work, for me that's a struggle. I don't know how to charge. For example, selling an art, selling an original. For me, I prefer not to sell because I feel bad charging. So I prefer not to sell. I'm very bad with that, with those things. But yeah, normally if it's a studio, they give you a contract, and if it's first time, yeah, you start meeting them and all that. Like Steph was saying, depends on the budget. You know where you can put your time, right? If it's a low budget, then you can sketch super fast and then start building on that, and you know it's not going to be a super completely full color whatever art. If you have more time, then you're in my case, I'm more flexible to say, okay, I'll provide a specific amount of sketches, and then we start building. But there's also, when I'm starting, I kind of negotiate or talk about the amount of rounds that they would like to know or have in a specific. So that all depends on the amount of the budget and your relationship. It's tough because when you're starting, you just want to accept any freelance, right? But it's important, I feel. I'm getting all this, so I'm more philosophical about it. To be open to talk, and there's nothing wrong by talking to the client, and being honest is, okay, I can have that in this amount of time, and I might need more time, or I could do 1 round or 2 rounds. It's very flexible. I like to be flexible with them, so they are flexible with me. Of course, it's not going to be always like that, but in my experience, most of the time they see that I'm more chill in that sense, because at the end I understand it's their project and they want it to look like this, so I adapt to that. And then in my time, I can be picky with all the stuff for my own things. But it's a good idea what Steph said of contracts. I've never done it, and it's actually good. I normally just put it in words in an email, and like, I'll do this, and then they say, hey, let's do this, or let's not do that. But it's a good idea to do it with a contract. And then the rates. It's first time here in LA with me. So in Vancouver or in Costa Rica, we don't have anything like the guild, the animation guild. Now in Vancouver it's starting, but so for me, it's now I'm adapting to it. So it's good that you guys have like things on the website and all that, so you can see rates. It's very helpful. There's a bunch like the Salty Animators. But I also, a teacher once told me, like, okay, you're graduating, you might be very good, but that doesn't mean that your rate has to be like a pro. You're starting, you need to, like, people need to know, understand, or know you and trust you, right? So I think for me, I like to put myself in a balance. As if you go to Instagram, you can get very depressed by all the art, beautiful art that is there. So but you can also be honest and say, okay, I'm in between these artists, right? I want to be like these artists, but I'm a bit better than this, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not saying that artist is bad, but you might have more experience with things, right? So I like to put myself in a balance and say, okay, I'm in this level of as an artist, so I can charge something like this, and I cannot charge like as a legend of Eric Goldenberg as from Disney, right? Like, I'm not that person, right? So you gotta be realistic with those things. But as an artist, I think every experience teach you something. It's like, okay, I can start. You do a freelance, and then you do a bunch of freelance, and then you can start like, okay, I can start charging a bit more, and my daily rate can be more. And the other thing that for me it's very helpful is talk to other artists about their rates, right? We tend to like be very secretly about it, but just say, hey, how much are you charging? Of course, you need to know which artist you're gonna ask, because not everyone is comfortable about it. But I get a lot of messages from students. They're having a new freelance, or they just graduated, they don't know how to charge. So uh, I give them advice of not the specific rate, but hey, you maybe look or think about the amount of hours you're gonna put into this, and then you can start like making notes about how much potentially you could charge, right? Or if they suggest something, are you comfortable with that, or would you be comfortable with, I don't know, $10 extra or $100 extra, right? So I don't think there's a formula, but there are ways to get to that point.
Thank you. You guys have offered so much insight. So,
I also wanted to add to that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, like with the rate thing, like also if you feel like some like let's say a studio is offering you a certain rate and stuff, like if you feel like it's a bit unfair or maybe a bit too low, like I'm working on this too. Like don't be afraid to just be like, could I get more than what you're offering me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end, they could potentially say just no, and then it's your decision, and you're allowed to say, well, you know what, it's not working for me, and that's fine. It's not gonna be the last freelance.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a great point. You know, not being afraid to ask, because the worst that you're gonna say is like, that doesn't work with our budget, and then you're running a business of art.
Exactly.
If your artwork, you don't have to say yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of artists feel like because it's maybe a certain big name at studio, that if they say no, they'll never work with that studio again. It's not the case. It's a business. It's an industry, you know. So speaking on like industry as well, like we got some Q&A questions that I wanted to ask you guys, and if we want to keep our answers quick to try to get as many in the next 5 to 10 minutes, I think that'd be fun. It's almost like a really quick Jeopardy session of like, you gotta give me your answer really quick. This one's really interesting. Is it okay to cold email potential clients about freelance work? So I'm not an artist, so I've never had to do this. I'm usually the person cold emailing people. So what do you guys do?
I don't know if I really email. Like I don't really cold email. Like normally I'm contacted, but when I was working like in studio, like in animation, like I was in the animation department, and let's say like, oh, is there like an opening coming soon and stuff, to like maybe like a recruiter or something that I've met like at some networking thing, then I think that was like kind of when I would do it. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like well, I don't know, this is like in Canada.
Yeah.
I'll add, because I'm on the producer end. If I've worked with someone before, I always tell them, like, once we're done with an assignment, like, feel free to reach out to me anytime for any future work. That's fine, because sometimes the timing might work out perfectly. I was like, oh, like, I know I need to hire somebody soon to do some work on this project. And someone will email me, is like, hey, we worked on this. I have some freelance availability coming up. And I'm like, oh, perfect timing. You know, you just never know. So that always works out well. And that I think that is an acceptable way to cold email. I would say not acceptable is probably just like hounding people on LinkedIn, sending them like an entire pitch of our project. You know, that one's probably like not the way to cold email.
Yeah.
Steph, can you hear?
Yeah. Is it back?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah. But what I was saying is that I guess that what I could compare it to is like that experience of people asking on social media, especially Twitter, like, hey, we're just looking to like incorporate more artists to our repertoire. Can you just like drop your portfolio maybe? That's like what I'll do when I want to in track and look for like studio work again. So I guess that's like the more viable option for me. And also it allows me to like, if I like any other artist's work, I can just like follow back, and that's like doing connections too.
Awesome. Thank you. Next Q&A question. How, I think you guys kind of answered this, but I just kind of want to hear you guys answer it as well. Is how important are our school credentials in getting a job in freelance? I think some of you said you started and didn't finish, or started and pivoted to something else, and then it's different everywhere. So how important is it?
Yeah, in my case, I didn't graduate from 3D animation. I just did a 1-year program then in Vancouver, and that got me into a lot of like type of works and all that. I think at the end it's it's your work, and also how are you as a teammate.
Yeah.
Because you could be super talented, but if you're very hard to work with, people won't hire you again. So you got to be a teammate and raise your hand and, hey, I can help, and then your work, right? Because the sense that you understand what they are giving you, that you're willing to explore and all that, for me that talks a lot. I was at some point animation director on a show, and I was the one hiring people. And then, yeah, you find people that have a lot of art degrees and stuff like that, but then the work doesn't translate. I needed a good animator for a specific thing, and the ones with degrees maybe are not. I'm not saying that they're always like that, but I remember a few examples of someone with a lot of degrees, but then at the end didn't have enough experience or eye for what I was looking for. So at the end, I think it's a combination of your taste, your artwork, and the type of artist and teammate you are.
Yeah, especially I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think that. If anything, I think it's more valuable, like the experience you have and the drive to just like go for it and draw and practice, because the school I graduated from, it's not really like even like recognized in the state I lived in. We don't have like a major school or an art scene in the way the US have, or even Vancouver have. And that was something that worried me, because there was a moment where I thought that I will have to end up studying overseas or having to like going to college somewhere else. But what really mattered is that, as always said, that I was a teammate, that I wanted to work on the projects, collaborate, give my all, and also have the drive to like what you didn't learn in school. You take what you learn from it, but what you didn't learn from school, you need to have the drive to just like go for it and learn it on your own, because there is no other way. And like that is going to be the thing that's going to like make the difference between you just having like a degree and the practice and the experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I know we're at time, and we weren't able to get to all the Q&A questions, but there's plenty of great questions. What I would recommend for everyone that had a Q&A question is there's a lot of other events here at AfroAnimation Virtual Summit. I'll be around. I'm sure hopefully our speakers here will also be around and networking. For all you guys, are you okay sharing your social media in the chat, just in case people want to follow you and reach out anytime? Or your LinkedIn. I highly recommend just networking with people and chatting with people. These are all questions that that people always ask and always need to hear that positive reinforcement. I will say, as an artist, we don't look at any of those degrees. When we're looking to try to hire artists, like we're just looking for talent, for fun styles, for a personal voice, and all these artists here speaking today have that. So, and there's plenty of others online. Definitely follow latinxanimation.org, Latinx Animation on socials. We have more events and programming and talks similar to this. I noticed someone asked about how they can use Latinx Animation to network with studios. This won't be announced until next week, but I'm just going to say it now. Latinx Animation will be having portfolio reviews with several animation studios in June. It'll be open to any Latinx Animation members, and it'll be open to anyone based in the US and international. So this will be your opportunity to have a portfolio review with with recruiters, with artists from studios that I won't name at the moment. But there's other opportunities, Rise Up Animation, Asians Animation, Black and Animated. There's a lot of organizations and resources out there. I would recommend following those organizations and those that I haven't named as well, just because I'm trying to end the talk. So, but again, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. Hope this provides some insight. Thank you, Luis, Steph, Urajwa, for taking the time. And
thank you guys.
And thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care. Bye. Nice to meet you. See you on social media. Bye-bye.
Bye.